Hello everyone! Today we are looking at a new feature, the map generator, which is currently in early access, will be on stable starting November. And we have a new scene to test it out. So let's see what it's all about. The idea of this new feature is that it will let you create maps very quickly and easily. And we have our new blank scene. So to access the feature, we'll just create a shape. You can do it from an existing tile, but I just prefer to do it like this. So from the place tile tool, we make a new tile. When we go into the 3D tab, you will see that in the dynamic mesh drop down, we have the new map generator here at the bottom. So we select the map generator and this cog here will appear to configure it. So we can click it and we can now play with the map generator. I will quickly just update this tile and we can start working from here basically. So you will see when you open it that you have this grid. You can set the zoom to whatever you prefer. And it's a grid that's a certain number of rows and columns that you can set here on the top. By default, it will be set as the dimensions of your scene. We'll make just something smaller for testing, like 10 by 10. So we can work in a more confined space. So how does this work? You can see that on the right, you have your material panel. In this material panel, you make all your tiles. For example, you want a ground tile, you want a grass tile, stuff like that. You can all create it here. For this video, we will not specifically configure one, but I will show you how to configure one, but then we will use the pre-made ones. So, for example, we can make our, let's say, rock or something like this. Here you can see if you have the 3D canvas map making pack, you can select directly from here. So we'll just pick like some kind of random rock. And then you can set some other parameters that we are gonna look at very shortly. So first you can see that there is a color picker close to the name. This is the color that the material will use to be represented on the cell. It doesn't change what it looks on the map. It's just to distinguish them in the cell layout. So you can see that we have some buttons on the top here. I will just select all and apply this material. And you can see that already we have our map here. So I'll deselect the tile and but you see that like we have a 10 by 10 thing, but this is just like the shape that we initially made. And we don't really want that. We want it to be aligned to the grid. So to do that, we have this auto size and position tile that will automatically set it here. And you can see that it's kind of clipping the background. That is because it's gonna be set at like -5 elevation, so that your cells that are one height are gonna be like the base for the 0 elevation in the map. So let me quickly disable the background so we can work with seeing everything. So we go here as usual to disable our background here, and we save. And we can reload the 3D view. And now we have our map without the background. So the background was there so you could see that it was like aligned to the corner here. And now we can zoom in to see better what's going on. So you can see that every cell is now has this texture. And we can do many things to the material. So we're gonna look at the material tab very briefly. And you can see that we can set some parameters here on the material. For example, we might want it to be more metallic. And if we want it like with a mirror finish, we can have like this kind of mirror finish thing. So you can mess with the sliders. You can have it be emissive to emit light. Or you can even have it semi-transparent if you want like some kind of fluid or something. And you can repeat the texture if you need to. So you can see that you can change the scaling of the texture in this very simple way. The other thing is this randomize. This will randomize the rotation of the texture. So you can see that now on the sides we have like this seamless texture, and from the top it all looks the same. If you have bricks or something like that, you might not want this to look like so similar. So you can hit the randomize, and as you can see, the rotation will be randomized. Keep in mind that if the texture is meant to be seamless, on the sides it will no longer look seamless. And this is the configuration for the material. We have some more buttons here. For example, we can select all cells that have this material. So if I were to deselect all and select the material, it will reselect them. We can delete the material, and we can expand and collapse. When you're done with your material, you can collapse it. And as you can see, it will now be in this collapsed state, so you can have more materials at the same time. You can preview the texture by hovering over this little texture here, and you can add more materials as you need them. Now let's see at other settings that we have here. So we've seen the rows and columns, we've seen the zoom, we have the bevel setting that we can look at right now. So you can see that between these cells we have this kind of bevel, and this number determines like how big this bevel is. So you can see 0.9 looks like this. You can set even to 0 if you want to have it flat. I do like my 0.05. It's a pretty decent number for the bevel. And then let's see the main meat of this. So we know that we can set like every single cell can have a different material. We will look at an example later. But we can also set the height of the cells. So when you auto size, basically the one height cells will be your 0 elevation. So if I were to drop a token onto this, it will drop at 0 elevation. So this surface here, 0 elevation. But we can set whatever we want. So we can click and drag to select multiple cells. And you can, if you start clicking and dragging on our selected cells, it will deselect the cells, right? And once the cells are selected, we can set the elevation here. So let's say we want this at 3, and we can set height for selected cells. Now, whenever the total height changes, we will need to hit the auto size button here. So you can see that these are 3 height and these are 1 height. And you can see that you have this nice little map thing, and you can do kind of whatever. So you will see that now if I do something here and I set it, for example, at 2 elevation, it will not like screw up the height. We will not need to resize. It's only if you change the maximum height of the whole thing. But we have the button here for this. That's an explicit reason. So now that we know we can do this, let's look at the other buttons. So we have the select all, deselect all, we have the invert selection, and we have the clear material, so we can remove a material from some of the cells. For example, let's say we want a hole in here. Oh, let me deselect. If we want a hole, we can clear the material, and now we have a hole in here. So if a cell has no material, or you set the height to 0, that's what will basically say to the software, yes, there is no cell here. So you can make floating things and stuff. Of course, you cannot make multi-floor stuff specifically in this. Like I cannot have a gap like here and then another cell on top of it. But because there are tiles, you can make multiple of them and stack them. So that's kind of how you do that if you wanted to do some kind of multi-level thing. So let's see the other features now. Now we know how to handle manually this kind of thing. And again, we can use stuff like select cell with this material. And we'll select this. And let's let's see what are these options on the top. So we know how to manually handle our map generation, create materials and stuff like that. But we also have themes. So you can see that there are many themes you can select here. And you can just click a theme and it will replace all of your materials with the theme. So it will clear out whatever you have here. Now remember that the materials are assigned to the cells by their name. So these cells have the rock material. If you change the name of the rock material, it will unapply it from the cells. So we can go into themes and select something like Firelands. And now we have these materials, right? So we can, for example, select elevation 1 with this. So we can select all cells with this elevation and apply the lava material, and then select everything else. So we invert selection and we apply this. And you can see that we have this kind of theme here. And of course you can modify the materials if you want. If you want to make it like a bit emissive or something like that, you can do it from here. And now that we know that we can load the themes, there is also a shortcut. So if you shift click a theme, it will, there you go, add it to your current materials. It will not replace everything. So hold shift while clicking. And now we're gonna look at one of the most interesting feature, in my opinion, the generate function. So this will let you generate some layouts of many different kinds. So let's try it. When you hit the generate, it will ask you what the max height of the generation will be. And the max height is the maximum cell height that it will use when generating. So if you tell it 3, it will make a thing that's like a maximum of 3 high. So let's hit yes. And as you can see, we have this kind of layout. It's kind of small to see what is actually being generated here because it's just a 10 by 10. So let's increase the size to see what changes. And let's do a 30 by 30 grid. Of course, as you can see, it's the auto sizing changed. So let's auto size it accordingly. And now we can generate again. And as you can see, it produces this kind of cave layout of some sorts. And you can do many things with it. For example, let's say, I don't know, you like the layout, but you wished it was inverted or something. So you can, for example, do stuff like just, you know, select height 3. So you select all the cells and you can say like, yes, these cells are gonna be like height 1 or something. So we set the height. And now you're like, yeah, how do I select this? Well, we have the select with these materials options here. And of course, we do a deselect all, we select the cells, the material, and we set them to 3. And now our cave is in an inverted layout. Of course, you can like use the same inputs to, you know, change the materials and stuff like that. But let's look at some more generations. So for example, we have the dungeon here, which is another generator that you can use. And this will generate a dungeon layout. So you might be asking why, like, where is my grass? So depending on the generator you use, there are some differences, but generally speaking, when you generate, the lowest cell will always use the first material. The highest cell will always use the highest, the last material. In this case, the first two specific generators generate basically a 2D layout, right? It just has like, here is walls, here is not walls. So it just uses the topmost and the bottommost materials to generate, and this is like the cave and the dungeon, so it can make like this kind of layouts here. But if you use other generators, such as the shore, it will use multiple materials. As you can see, we don't have much rock here. My suggestion is if you use the other generators, so as you can see, we have the cave, which is like kind of a cellular generator, and the dungeon that uses the rogue generator. But the other generators all use terrain generation, and these are all 3D in their height. So when you use this, I would suggest you give it like a bit more height to make it a bit more nice. For example, let's try 10. As you can see, we have like a different layout. And by default, of course, these cells are 10 height, right? So every cell is the same, but no one is forcing you to use like this. Like you can use the scale tool and, you know, make it flatter, higher. So you can manipulate however you want, and you can generate like all these kind of things. They're all similar variations on the same algorithm. They will produce kind of different results depending on what happens here. And so you can see that we have kind of different types of terrains depending on what you use. So now that we know this, of course, after you generate, no one is stopping you from, you know, manually changing height of some cells to make them look exactly the way you want, make a plateau, make whatever, right? So you have a base and then you can modify it to your taste. And we have a ton of themes here that we can use. For example, it's the jungle ruins. We can make you know, a cave, and I would suggest we make this like height. I personally like the height 3 on this kind of things. You can make your cave, you can make your dungeon. And if you wish to skip the dialogue and do a bit of a quicker generation, also here you can shift click and it will just generate skipping the dialogue. It will use the last height you set it to. So this, I hope, is a powerful tool to help you build, you know, quick maps or even basic layouts. You can even use it to make modular tiles to build dungeons right on the fly. You can use it for many things. And one of the cool things I really like about this is that it will work with multiple grid types. So we can leave this open, but let's say we go into here and in the grid, we want now the hexes. And we go back into 3D mode and you can see that it automatically converted this to X's, and it works on all the X grid types that you can select. When you convert to a different grid, you need to, you know, resize it correctly so it's aligned properly, but all these things are in fact aligned with the grid. So you can see that my token will automatically snap to this hexes. And while maybe for the dungeons it's not super great, I do enjoy using hexes for more like terrain kind of things. So maybe we go in the desert, we generate our shore height, let's say 5. And you see that we can have this kind of layouts here, which I personally enjoy a lot. We can do some more generations to see if we get like something more interesting. You can edit it manually. And I will show you one trick that I personally like, especially by using the shore, because it generates this kind of you know, watery shores. You can, of course, let's close this, do something very neat, which is in your tile tool. We can create a box here. Now I'm not gonna spend too much time sizing it exactly, but you know, and we can place it like somewhere like here. Is it like kind of in the correct position, I guess? So we can do something like this and align it. And then we can use the shaders to make it water. We give it like a bit of a tint. And we can do like stuff like this, you know? It looks quite neat, it's simple to do. Of course, we probably want to, you know, scale it a bit accordingly. we probably want to set the, you know, the wave height and stuff like that to be more, you know, so it doesn't clip. And now there are some new settings here that you can use for the water. So maybe we want very low roughness, we want like some good reflectivity, and the opacity maybe we want it, you know, 85. And there you go. Look at this, beautiful. Like a very low effort map that looks very good. And you can see that we have the beautiful reflections of the clouds in the water here. And yes, this is the new map generation feature. It can let you make very quick maps, quick and easy maps in literally like minutes. And I hope you really enjoy this new feature and you have fun, and it makes your life easier when creating 3D maps, especially on the fly. Thanks for watching. You can get 3D Canvas and all my other premium modules, which are around 20, by subscribing to my Patreon. And I'll see you next time.